Alright, so we got Psychonauts 2 and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, two very good 3D platformers that came out in 2021. Both games were created by super solid, proven game studios in Insomniac Games and Double Fine. And let me tell you, these games were a breath of fresh air in the never-ending open-world shooter field of today. Ratchet and Clank and Psychonauts have very similar gameplay loops and controls, but handle a few things, especially combat, very differently. Ratchet and Clank features traditional shooting mechanics, but with some imaginative twists and turns that Insomniac is known for. The game throws a lot of enemies at you and fills the screen with a ton of different colors, particle effects, and just everything the game can throw at you. And I definitely found myself getting a little tired of the lack of enemy variety, but that's easily fixed with the insane amount of weapon variety. Even if the weapons lack specific strengths and weaknesses for each enemy. It feels great to constantly switch weapons and run around these shooting galleries, because the game feels so fluid and well-tuned. Slightly more than Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts still feels great, but I found the controls and platforming to be slightly less precise. The combat is a bit more basic, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. There's definitely more strategy involved here, as certain enemies will have only specific weaknesses to certain weapons, especially later on in the game. I did really enjoy having to constantly switch weapons based off of the different enemies though, even if it's a little less flashy and less refined than Ratchet and Clank. Remember when I said Ratchet and Clank throws a lot of enemies at you? Well, there are a lot of times when Ratchet and Clank feels more like a third-person shooter than a platformer. Even though everything is super fine-tuned and animated beautifully, I wish there was just more to explore and do in the world with all of that. Except I have a monkey brain, and my monkey brain loves rail grinding. And this stuff in this game is insane. The rail grinding segments, portals without any loading screen is crazy and mind-blowing. I had such a fun time traversing through these rail grinding segments. In terms of straight-up gunplay, Ratchet and Clank easily wins, but that's not the only gameplay we have here. Psychonauts 2 allows for much more exploration and traditional 3D platforming, and there is a ridiculous amount of gameplay and level variety in this game. Here's a list of worlds. Ready? First, you're in this dentist mouth world. Then you go to a hospital world that changes into a casino. Then you go to this super cool cooking minigame world. Then you go to a spectacularly done concert festival world with Jack Black.
I can't remember much of anything.
A bowling world, a haircut world, a mail world, an alcoholic world that changes from this to this, and that's not even talking about all of them or the insanely well done hub world. So even though Ratchet and Clank definitely feels more fine-tuned at times, I just gotta give gameplay to Psychonauts here. Each game is super pretty in its own right, but Ratchet and Clank is obviously the more visually impressive game. Not to say Psychonauts 2 isn't visually impressive, and it definitely is. It features a ton of variety, colors, and cool, wacky, unique character models. But I wish you could travel to and from the mines without loading screens, and there are definitely some clunky animations and just low-quality textures here and there. Ratchet and Clank, on the other hand, is a technical marvel. The reflections and textures, the fur and general face emotions, the lack of loading screens, it just feels very polished and impressive. Audio, music, and dialogue is very solid in both games, but other than the dialogue, I found Ratchet and Clank to be more memorable in this department. Just like I knew Ratchet and Clank would clearly win in the audio and visuals department, I knew Psychonauts would definitely win the stories and characters. Ratchet and Clank has a good story, but it's passable. I don't really understand the overall love with the story here, but I liked it. The tone, humor, pacing, and heart overall felt like playing a Pixar movie. Coupled with the visuals and really nice game feel, it just felt really nice. But the story, stakes, and characters just never felt that interesting, and I would have liked the story to explore more of the alternate universes and characters more. Meanwhile, the story for Psychonauts 2 is legitimately a great personal and hilarious story. It's filled with fantastic characters and writing, and the stories here are surprisingly dark, relatable, and they're all super strong. The story is wonderfully weird, unique, I just can't get enough of it. Both games are great, especially in the current video game landscape. Although Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a really fun game, in the end, it's just another Ratchet & Clank game, which is a good thing. I'll be super excited for the next Ratchet & Clank game, and I think this one is one of the best ones yet. But Psychonauts 2 will be played and remembered much longer, and in the end, we're only gonna get one Psychonauts 2. This video is brought to you by my game Midnight Acres. It's on Steam right now. You can wishlist it. It comes out later this year. It's gonna be really good, I promise. It's a farming simulation game meshed with an intense FPS experience. Check it out in the comments below. And if you like this video, subscribe to stay up to date because I'll be coming out with more like this soon. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Ratchet & Clank and Psychonauts, and what two games I should compare next. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.